おお、あの時の旦那じゃねえか。アシナの城では世話になったな。俺はここでしばらく居候さ。仕入れたネタの整理も必要だからな。旦那になら商いもするぜ。どうだい？
Hello everyone and welcome yet again to the Sekiro boss battle and strategy guide. In this particular section we're still dealing with the Ashina castle, a place that I'm enjoying very much, and I'm glad to have managed to explore most of the entirety of the section. And in this particular episode I'll be bringing you a triple entente, so to speak. I don't know if that's copyrighted or not by the First World War, but in this particular segment we'll be looking at 3 mini bosses. I don't really like to call them mini bosses as if that makes them seem small. These are very big fights. These are just not main bosses in the game. We're looking at 3 people in particular. The first one will be General Kasunosuke Matsumoto with his subordinate officers that will be hanging around the Ashina Castle gates. And then we'll be moving on to the one of the 7 Ashina spears, Shibuku Yamauchi. I'm not sure if he is related to the other General Yamauchi we met in the outskirts, but you know, we could tie in some family ties due to the similar names. And the last one we'll be looking at is the lone shadow long swordsman. So in this particular fight with General Matsumoto, you have to understand that he is surrounded by his subordinate officers, most of which using rifles. So it's a particularly tricky situation. It's not so easy to fight Matsumoto by himself. So instead of dragging him off to the enclosure to the side, I feel like it's easier, not so much easy, I feel like I use that term a lot even though I don't really mean it. I feel like it might be a simpler or better strategy to clear out his subordinate officers, as this limits ranged attacks that are being fired against you, and this leaves you in a 1v1 fight against General Matsumoto. Now, once you've managed to do that, taking as little damage as you possibly can, even though I know it's difficult to not take too much damage, you are faced with the same General Genichiro moveset that we faced when dealing with the other generals in the Ashina outskirts, and also dealing with General Genichiro himself. So it's the similar moveset. I never found much difference in it besides one follow-up attack after the big jumping attack. So in that particular case, you just want to lure him down to the steps so that the other enemies, NPCs on the roofs, do not get to you. It's a simple matter of patience. Stun him if you can with the firecrackers if you want to rack up posture damage. If that doesn't interest you, you can still use the spinning shuriken. That's also a viable option. In terms of prosthetic tools, you have a much greater variety of what you can use against him. He doesn't really have that much life as compared to one of the other people we'll be going to right now. And of the 3 in the triple entente, he's definitely the easier one to fight. At this point, you have really good base knowledge as to how to fight against the Genichiro Ashina moveset, as we have done and dealt with in previous episodes. So patience, it's okay to get hit. It's okay, don't panic. Don't panic when you get hit. Evade when you can and use your healing gourd. Resurrection in certain situations might not be a good idea, so watch out. I have a rule. If you haven't dealt damage to the opponent, or if you haven't dealt significant damage to the opponent, do not resurrect. That's what I always do. Or if your healing gourds are low and you feel like you were outclassed, resurrections are definitely not an option. But just take it nice and slow. In this case, chasing posture damage isn't really a necessity, as you can deal significantly good damage against him. I don't think it's really something to fret about, even if he reduces his posture with one of his healing spells. And that will be the kill against Matsumoto. Simpler one of the 3, like I said. But moving on to one of the 7 Ashina spears, this guy rocked my world. I don't have a better sense of what else to say by the fact that this man rocked my world. And you are able to take down one of his life bars if you go around and get a stealth death blow against him. But even so, it's very difficult. You have to understand, this is something I don't know if I explained in the past. Thrusting attacks cannot be blocked in this game. You will take damage and you will take posture damage. The only way to deal with thrusting attacks is deflections or the Mikiri counter, both of which sometimes are not so easy to pull off. And you find yourself in situations whereby you are really willing to jump away, and with this great range on this spear, jumping away is just asking to get hit. But one thing you have to understand is this: when dealing with the Shibiki, or should I say Shikibu, you are entitled to be extremely patient even after landing the Mikiri counter, because of the fact that it doesn't completely give you a chance to get an attack. Instead, when you get a Mikiri counter, your aim is to hope that he attacks you. The follow-up subsequent attack is the one that will get free damage on him. But just going for a blow after that will have you meet up with a counter hit situation, which you generally don't want to be in. But like I said, this is a very difficult mini boss to fight. It's understandable that you will suffer, if for a lack of better words. I never got a chance to use flame on him, but I feel like maybe that could have been a viable option. But the one particular upgrade that I used in this particular section that I feel is very great is the follow-up attack after prosthetic 2. I feel like that's a really, really good option.
Hmm. あやつの言っていたふぬけの狼、おらんようだな。無能ゆえ破れ、生き恥をさらす忍びなど、一度見てみたかったが、是非もないか。まことに死なぬなら、機会はいくらでもあろうての。
Now, when dealing with the lone shadow, long swordsman, it's very easy to be tricked and going into a second dialogue tree with him. This will trigger him to start the fight because the shinobi he's looking for is actually you. So in this particular case, get the first dialogue against him. Do not continue to talk to him as he'll realize who you are. Then after that, go back out the well and get your stealth death blow against him. This will allow you to take down one of his life bars before the fight even begins. He's a very acrobatic boss in a very narrow stage. Now that means the camera will be your opponent. Just like the Blazing Bull, do not be shocked if the camera is against you. But fire is one of his greater weaknesses, and like I said, against most human flesh-based opponents and even beasts, fire is a great tool to use against these. So stock up on your oil. Make sure you've got enough oil and you've got enough emblems to take as much damage against him as you possibly can. In this particular fight, it wasn't actually necessary to go in and deflect. I'm sure that's also a viable option for those who don't have the resources necessary. Maybe you don't have the flaming prosthetic tool, maybe you don't have enough oil. You are still able to fight him hand to hand, but I feel like that just makes the situation much harder than it needs to be. He is protecting one of the back entrances to the abandoned dungeon, and I feel like we're gonna have a lot of fun there. Seems like a very difficult place to be, but like I said, flame him, do good damage against him, and you'll get a very easy kill. This is completely worth it as compared to doing it the regular way. Thanks for watching, and that'll be it for the Ashina Castle. I assume I'll be seeing you guys in the Lost Abandoned Dungeon.